Here's my Lego Technic model of more or less a Harley-Davidson fat boy motorcycle. Now mine's fairly... It was meant to be functional first, and then to look like a cool motorcycle, and then just kind of based on the fat boy specifically. So there's some difference there. That's probably a fairly modified motorcycle, but anyways, this is what it looks like. Got a license plate here. On the other side, got the exhaust pipes. Yeah, that's what it looks like. So for functionality, we've got spring-loaded kickstand here. Pops up, pops down, up, down. Front suspension, just using the big shocks from the BMW set. Pretty easy to do. Rear suspension, using a couple short shock absorbers up there, like that. So overall, we got that's kind of suspension. Oops. Detachable handlebars apparently. Okay, so what else do we have? We got steering naturally. Kind of springs back to position just because of all these pneumatic tubes. Okay. So next I'll show some pneumatic functions. So the model here, we've got a pneumatic compressor right in here that's connected to some other functions that I'll get to later. Then we got an air tank here, so it's a white air tank. I covered it with a bit of electrical tape just so it doesn't stand out quite as bad in the black motorcycle. Then I also added an old distribution block pneumatic part, which allows me to have a one-way valve. So this port here I can attach a manual pump to pressurize the system, and then because there's a one-way valve, the air won't escape. So, yeah, I'm usually too lazy to wait for compressors to work, so I put them in models and then don't use them. So, anyways, I've got the system pressurized right now, so we've got the front brake here. So if we take a look down here, we're using one small pneumatic cylinder here. So it's moving that 3x2 beam, which slides that rubber part in and out. Get some more pressure and show other functions. So the rear brake works on about the same principle. Got the small cylinder, the two rubber pieces there, controlled by a foot pedal. I guess the last pneumatic function would be the clutch. So it's controlled by this lever here. That is hooked up to this pneumatic cylinder here, which is assisted by this rubber band to press this 28-tooth gear against this old tire. So it can either be pulling with the rubber band, pulling that way, or it can be fighting against it to ease it off. So it doesn't look like a lot of difference, but I think it works. So I actually haven't tested it since I finished the model, which is kind of stupid. We'll see, I guess, if it works or not. So the next function we've got here is the transmission. That was a pretty big focus of this model. Really wanted to have a realistic transmission. So it's a 6-speed. We've got 8 to 24, 12 to 20, 16 to 16. This here is 14 using old gears from the 90s. So the old 14-tooth gear to 20. Then we've got 20 to 12 and 8 to 24. So 6 different ratios, controlled by this stepper here. So let's see, where are we now? Okay, so we got, this is first gear here. No, that's the wrong way, I think. Alright, so up, I guess? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so this is second gear. I'm breaking stuff off left and right. Third gear. Fourth gear. Fifth gear. I missed a shift or something. Oh, there's sixth. Let's try to go back down to fifths. I don't know, it's supposed to be that there. So that'd be fifths and sixths. Fifths. Not quite going in. Fourth. Third. Second. First. Now I realize there should be a neutral between first and second, and there kind of is. If you push the lever only that far, you can get it into a neutral. But then if you keep going, it'll snap into second here. I wanted to have an actual position for a neutral between those two gears, but in the end it was just, I didn't really have the space to do it well. Maybe I could have figured out a way to do it, but it probably would have made the model a lot bigger and uglier, so I felt like it was a compromise I had to make. Yeah, stuff was falling off all around. So we got, the gearbox is using the Yamaha selectors here with forks. So normally, I don't know, shift logic with these things is really confusing. It's very hard to work it all out. And I could not find any way to get my 6 gears to shift in order by just doing 45-degree rotations like this usually does. So instead what I did is I actually just geared it up 3 times from this, so it's going 135 degrees per shift, which is perfect to move from one side of a driving ring to the other. So it'll go that, the next driving ring, that, and so on. Now because I'm gearing it up 3 times, it's quite a bit less precise, which is why gears were sometimes falling in or out when I was showing it before. But anyways, this is the stepper here. It also, it won't always shift if gears aren't in the right position, so it works better when stuff is moving. Okay. So I guess the last real function we've got is the engine and motor. So we've got a power function with large motor there, which then drives the large-scale 3x3 cylinder V-twin engine. Then I've also got some simulated valves on the top, which are the fancy new 3L pins with springs on them. I initially tried to do a pushrod type valve train like the original motorcycle would have, but I just couldn't figure out how to make that strong and compact in Lego. So in the end I went to an overhead valve design using a chain. Not sure if that's heresy for Harley-Davidson people or not. Not really into that, but probably. But it was what I had to do. So anyways, we got the battery we can turn on here. Yeah, there we go. So we're running the compressor here, you can see, pneumatic compressor. Got the valves running, kind of. And piston's moving as well. Now what we've got up here is we've actually got a throttle. Doesn't make a huge difference, but here we're pulling a flex cable. It's actually made of some 1.75 millimeter 3D printer filament, cut to approximately the length of the longest flex axle or flex cable Lego ever made. And then that's running this linkage here, which moves the dial on my Lego speed controller remote. So I've now got it up on some stands and the clutch is out. So if I put the clutch in, the wheel is not turning. The clutch would rather slip. If I put a little pressure on it, I can get the wheel to turn in low gear. Making little rubber flakes on the floor here. We upshift. That doesn't really help matters. But I'll just kind of hold the clutch in as I shift through the gear. So that'd be second, third, force, I guess. And a little bit of rotation. The gears probably don't look accurate because of how much the clutch is flipping. Fifth. Oh, I think yeah, I think the engine is kind of falling apart now. That thing fell over sideways. An axle came disconnected in there. So it doesn't really work that great for actually running the transmission. The clutch is just not really strong enough, but the idea is there. It's not really meant to be an RC model, just have a motor for some realism. Now that I've got this motorcycle taken apart, we can take a bit of a closer look at the engine and transmission. So we can see in here at least one half of the engine. It's a little hard to turn over by hand, but that's the idea. And then up here we've got these 1L beams mounted on 24-tooth gears working as the cams and pushing down these simulated valves. So that's the idea there. So the transmission already showed some of the shifting. So I'll just, this part here, it's a 3D printed part I made. It's essentially just taking it, being a stand-in for a fifth one of these, because I only have 4. And all it's doing is changing the axle direction by 45 degrees, just like one of these would, but that's all it's doing. So, yeah, this is what the gearbox looks like. I'll get those out of the way. So, 6 speeds, quite compact. And then we're shifting via these guys, so. So that's that. I think I'm pretty pleased with the way this model worked out. I think it looks cool, even if it's not particularly accurate for anything. It's got some interesting functions. Got in the realistic 6-speed transmission, which was a major goal. Got in a clutch, even if it doesn't really work. Some fairly realistic brakes. A nice large-scale engine. So yeah, just a lot of stuff that I hadn't done before. And it was quite fun to actually finally use my 1-to-5 motorcycle parts. Fun to use the 56-tooth turntable as a sprocket too. And I was pretty happy with doing a throttle here. That was different from anything I'm really familiar with. So yeah, it's not a perfect model, but interesting, I think, and fun.